Hello everyone, we are back with another video, and this time we have Dragon Ball Daima Episode 11, Legend. So we carry on where we left off last episode with Neva approaching the ship, and he's immediately spotted by Pansy, and we are now going to see if he indeed has something going on. So having spotted Neva, the gang approach him, and as they're about to begin their discussion, it's also revealed that Goma and Dagus are watching through, like, whatever video streaming service they've been using all this time. So they're observing the situation too. So almost immediately, Neva starts acting senile, goofy, whatever, and Vegeta kind of just goes, oh, he's senile, leave him behind, or whatever, let's go. But Piccolo sees through the act, tells him to stop playing dumb, and identifies him as the legendary Namek Neva. So he kind of stops playing the fool. Apparently this whole old Namekian senile thing was just an act, which, okay, fair enough. So this next bit of dialogue was kind of cool, in that Neva sort of says that Piccolo reminds him of Katarz, and Piccolo identifies Katarz as his father. Now this is sort of something that doesn't really get kind of brought up in the Dragon Ball canon a lot, but it has been dropped, a few times. And Katarz is technically Piccolo's grandfather, although Piccolo identifies him as his father, because he's the father of the Namekian that separated into Kami and Demon King Piccolo. But he calls him father, so that's that situation. But it's cool to get him referenced. So it's established here that Neva's been acting senile to sort of trick/deceive Goma. And when Piccolo kind of asks him about this, that he was okay with them doing the wish for them being turned into children. What if he'd wished for something else, something more sinister, essentially? He's basically saying, oh, I would have acted senile to sort of trick him, which is interesting. So maybe Neva's not actually a bad guy. I suppose we'll see with his actions going forward. He also said he kind of predicted that Dende would be kind of kidnapped, but he wasn't worried about them killing him because, and this ominous line again, that Nameks are valuable. How it was said last episode about how Nameks are valuable and made into slaves. Guess that's the way of the demon realm. I did like this next gag where Pansy's like, oh, if you create the Tamagami, you should have been able to just take down the Demon King yourself. And he's like, Neva's like, oh, well, Namek shouldn't use their power for conflict. And everyone just gives Piccolo a weird look and he just gets all flustered. I mean, it's kind of established in Dragon Ball lore that there are, Dragon Clan Nameks and Warrior Clan Nameks. I don't get why he gets bullied for this. So anyway, their conversation ends, and as they're leaving, Neva asks to go with them, and they say yes, why not? Well, there's a bit of conflict about it, but he kind of establishes that you need to speak some of the Dragon Balls using the Namekian language, which apparently in the 20-odd years since he spoke the language in Dragon Ball, Piccolo has forgotten how to speak it. So they need Neva for this, I guess. So now that that's over with, we transition scene with now Arin's she's returned to Marble with her failure of her son Majin Duu. So we can kind of guess what's going to happen here. So what to me is probably going to end up being a massive mistake. They are creating another Majin Buu thing. So they put in the remaining essence of Buu, and they make sure to put all of it in, a bigger portion of it. So Marba, says it might be risky, but let's go and bury the Cyberman seed 10 centimeters deep this time. And to her, that's risky. Arin's pipes in and says, oh yeah, let's go 20 centimeters deep. This seems like a mistake. This seems like it's going to backfire, and they're going to create a margin that's going to go out of control. And even Marble warns against this, saying it could go badly if it goes berserk. But then we get the most out of context scene where Aaron says, "Let's go all in." So they're taking the risk. But before we can see the result of whatever they're concocting, we change scenes again, and now we're back with Goku and pals, and they're all. You can see here they're all crammed into the ship, and Hybis is complaining about being stuck in the cargo. Suck it up, boy. So the first thing they do is kind of ask Neva a bunch of questions. I think it's really kind of, I guess, sweet that when they ask why Neva didn't leave with the rest of the Namekians, he says he wanted to keep it safe for when everyone returns. Now, I don't think they'll return, but the idea of the Namekians returning to Demon Realm is interesting at the very least. And then they also ask him why he created the Tamagami. And what I think is kind of cool here is that it's established that the Dragon Balls used to sort of exist like they do on Earth, where they would just scatter around and they were sort of a reward for Namekians who kind of hunted them down and collected them. But then people with poor intentions learned of the Dragon Balls and would use them for foolish purposes, as Neva puts them. And that is the reason he created the Tamagami, which, you know, is cool lore to it, and maybe the Dragon Balls on Earth need that sort of protection, really. So with that all cleared up, we get the next bit where we already know Vegeta's going to fight the next Tamagami because we saw it in the preview, but he claims the next Tamagami because Goku already got to fight one. Goku sort of tries to reject this a bit, but relents, and, you know, Vegeta's fighting Tamagami. We already knew this. So after that little bit of dialogue, we transition again back to Maba. They're finishing up the Majin creation potion, and they indeed measure it 20 centimeters deep. So they are going through with this, as foolish as it seems to be. And look, I love Majin Duu. I hope nothing bad happens to him, because he buries the seed, and he's like, "Oh, I've always wanted, you know, oh, does that mean this new one's going to be my brother? I've always wanted a brother." He's so hot. He's so wholesome. I want him to survive, and I just feel like the only expendable ones are going to be the ones who were, you know, original ones for this little series. So the seed is buried. His name is established as Majin Duu, and then out he comes, Majin Duu. Appearance-wise, I guess he does look more sinister than Majin Duu, and what I find worrying is he's got red eyes, sort of like how all the evil incarnations of Majin Buu did. And even if you go as far as like the Fighters game, like Android 21 had a good and a bad form. The bad form had red eyes too, whereas the good one had blue eyes. I don't know if that's going to be ominous, but here he is, Majin Duu. So anyway, the first thing Majin Duu wants is chocolate. So that's very reminiscent of Majin Buu, and Majin Duu goes off and gets chocolate for him. Now, when I saw this, I was curious, is that, are they going to be able to control him once they can give him, like, snacks like chocolate? Is there going to be a moment where they can't get him snacks, and that's where he's going to go wild? That's what I think might happen. But I guess we won't see until later. But, you know, I hope Majin Duu just doesn't turn, like, berserk or evil or whatever, because I already love Duu and Ku's little dynamic. Along with Aaron's, they have like weird what are they called? The Three Stooges. They've got a Three Stooges thing going on where Aaron's is the sensible one, and then Ku and Duu are like the chowder heads. So we yet again transition and we're back with Team Goku, and they are arriving at Tamagami number 2. And when they get there, he looks cool. He's a dude with a trident. Now, something I wasn't expecting. I love it. It's a cool little parallel, because at the same time, they switch and show that Team Arens has shown up at Tamagami number 1. So they're kind of... This is going to be a kind of sequence where they're fighting in parallel. Team Arens, where Majin Duu fights Tamagami number 1, and Team Goku, where Vegeta's going to fight Tamagami number 2. So we already know what Tamagami number 1 looks like, based from his fight against Majin Duu, but he's the dude with the serrated sword, and he and Duu face down each other in a nice little scene. And as I say, I love Ku and Doo's dynamic. Ku just cheering on Doo. Go Doo! And then Doo just saying thank you. Like, this guy can't end up being evil, right? Come on. So we get to see Doo fighting first, and I do love his fighting style. It is very reminiscent of, like, Fat Boo and Kid Boo. Kind of the unconventional way of fighting. So he opens up with, like, he kind of spins into a ball at the Tamagami, and then he gets thrown and then bounces off the wall back at him. He's definitely spongy, like you'd expect of Majin Buu. So he's more like Majin Buu in that respect. And then to add insult to injury, he's then slams his butt into the Tamagami's face. It's a goofy fighting style, but he does seem to be getting the upper hand based on these opening exchanges. So as I say, I'm already liking Doo's fighting style. The Tamagami tries to catch him off guard by blasting him with a ki blast, but he kind of ducks by doing the Majin Buu thing of ducking his head into his body, and then seemingly wanting to try out ki blast himself, just points his hand at his face and just blasts his own face. So he's got this comic way of fighting, I suppose. But we won't see the conclusion of this fight as we then move to the second Demon Realm and Vegeta's fight against the Tamagami. Now, he's warming up, and Pansy says something I think very dangerous to say in earshot of Vegeta, but is he going to be alright? He's not as strong as Goku, right? Technically true, but you don't say that next to Vegeta. But Vegeta lets that slide, and he goes and challenges the Tamagami, and oh my god, the Tamagami has a razor tongue apparently, because he says, "What, you're a child? Stop joking, go home and suck on your mum's teat." What? What an insult. So their fight starts, Vegeta opens with a ki blast, and then they start exchanging blows a little bit, before Vegeta seems to get the upper hand, starts pummeling the Tamagami a little bit. Vegeta then manages to land a point-blank ki blast, and everyone's impressed. He seems to have done decent damage. But of course, in true Dragon Ball style, the smoke clears, the Tamagami's fine, and manages to start his counterattack and gets a cut on Vegeta's face, on his cheek, to be specific. And of course, with anime and little cheek cuts, it enrages Vegeta. Speaking of cuts, we cut back to Doo, who still seems to have the upper hand. No matter, every time we go back to him, the Tamagami does, while, Ku and Tamagami seem to go back and forth on who was on top, Tamagami isn't showing any sign of getting the upper hand at all. It's all Doo. So, could be a formidable opponent. But the Tamagami then does that, we swap back to Vegeta's fight, and the Tamagami does that cool thing we always see in anime with, like, swordsmen or weapon fighters where they slash the sky. So he does a horizontal and a vertical slice, and it comes through as, like, beams that approach Vegeta and knock him into the water. And as we know in the Demon Realm too, the second Demon Realm, the water has Krakens, and Vegeta is attacked by the Kraken and swallowed. But anyway, that's where the episode ends. The next episode will looks like it's going to cover the conclusion of the fight against both the Tamagamis. As for earlier in this video, I did talk about stakes and, who really is at risk. So we know Vegeta's gonna be fine. And this is the whole point of it being a midquel, between the Majin Buu saga and Dragon Ball Super, in that no one of the Universe 7 guys are going to be at risk. They'll all be fine. So it's hard to get invested in Vegeta being in trouble because we know he's not in trouble. So it's when people like Glorio or Pansy get in trouble, in that they could be at risk. But I am enjoying, everything so far. It's been mostly a fun little trip, sort of series, and I think that's fine. I think that the creators knew that they couldn't really put high stakes in here because it leads to Super. But it's been enjoyable so far, and it's nice to see them flexing their stuff finally. How have you guys found it? Are you enjoying it so far? Are you looking forward to next week? I certainly am. But until then, bye for now.